Few truths are as inevitable as this. All of us, at some point, will walk towards the end of life. For many seniors, this transition is slow and quiet, marked by small signs that, when put together, can indicate that the journey is nearing its final stage. It's common for family or friends to notice changes, but they rarely give them the weight they deserve. When Stephen Hawking spoke about the importance of recognizing the body's limits, he wasn't just referring to science, but also to accepting that existence is finite. Observing the signs isn't an act of despair, but rather a form of care. It's a chance to offer presence, dignity, and support in the time that remains, and as difficult as it is to think about, these clues often appear clearly, simply asking to be listened to attentively. Recognizing the signs can be painful, but ignoring them can mean missing opportunities for comfort and important goodbyes. One of the reasons to address this topic so plainly is because silence often worsens the suffering. When those close by don't know what's coming, they are emotionally unprepared and fail to make decisions that could make a difference. Some people prefer not to see reality, but as Hawking said, ignoring the facts doesn't make them disappear. Today's video is an invitation to understanding, not fear. We will present, with care and responsibility, 7 signs that experts and attentive family members often notice when an elderly person enters their last year of life. This content doesn't replace medical evaluation, but it can serve as a gentle alert. If you think this type of reflection could help someone else, please consider giving us a like and subscribing. This way, our channel can continue producing videos that respect the experience and the time of those who have lived so much. Now, with the serenity that the topic deserves, let's observe each of these signs and what they may be trying to communicate. The first sign is the progressive loss of vital energy. It's not just tiredness or laziness, but a noticeable change in the pace of life. People who previously had the willingness to do small tasks, like watering plants or walking to the sidewalk, begin to avoid any effort. This lack of initiative may seem like laziness to inattentive eyes, but it's usually accompanied by an expression of exhaustion. It's as if the body is slowly giving up. In many cases, even the act of talking becomes tiring, speech becomes more paused, the gaze less reactive, and the periods of rest increase noticeably. These signs of withdrawal usually intensify in the following months, and those who live with the elderly person feel that something has changed, even if they don't yet know exactly what. When vital energy begins to fade, it rarely shines with the same strength again. The second sign involves appetite. Changes in eating habits are common with age, but when the person begins to reject foods they have always liked, or spends days eating almost out of obligation, it's time to pay attention. Prolonged loss of appetite can signal a deeper imbalance. In many cases, the body enters a state of natural slowdown, prioritizing vital functions and discarding what it considers secondary. Food, which was once a source of pleasure and sustenance, becomes viewed with indifference. There are also reports of elderly people who simply forget to eat, even with the food served in front of them. This shouldn't be treated as common distraction. When combined with visible weight loss and disinterest in group meals, this sign gains even more relevance. It's not just the stomach that closes, but also the impulse to stay in this world. Another important sign is the increase in sleep time. Sleeping more can be healthy at certain stages of life, but when sleep becomes practically continuous, attention is needed. Many seniors in their last year begin to sleep more than 15 hours a day. This pattern of excessive rest is accompanied by a certain slowness upon waking, as if getting out of sleep requires a disproportionate effort. The mind seems to be increasingly disconnected from daily life. The time spent awake is short, and even during that time there are lapses in attention and a feeling of disconnection with the environment. This behavior can be confused with depression or simply advanced age, but for doctors who care for patients in palliative care, it's a recognizable pattern. The body is gradually disconnecting from the physical world, and sleep often becomes a space of transition between what has been lived and what is to come. The fourth sign is a subtle but significant change in communication. People who have always been talkative begin to respond with short sentences, sometimes with a simple nod. It may seem like they're just tired or impatient, but often it's the brain that's saving energy. The effort to organize thoughts, transform ideas into words, and maintain a line of reasoning becomes exhausting. At times, the person may seem distant, as if they're not fully present. This shouldn't be confused with disinterest or coldness. In fact, it may just be another step in the natural process of disengagement. Some family members report that during this period, the elderly person's gaze gains a kind of depth, as if it's turned more inward than outward. It's in this silence that unspoken feelings, memories that return, and goodbyes that haven't yet been said are often hidden. The fifth sign is a gradual emotional detachment. It's not a lack of love, but an almost instinctive withdrawal. The person begins to refuse visits, avoids phone calls, and doesn't respond with the same emotion to demonstrations of affection. To outside observers, this may seem like coldness, but it's, in most cases, a sign that the internal focus is shifting. There's a kind of retreat, as if the soul is preparing its own steps. In many cases, the person still shows gratitude with small gestures, such as a handshake or a slight smile, but the intensity of the emotional connection seems to dilute. This can be especially difficult for family members who feel as if they are slowly losing the bond. But it's important to understand that this detachment isn't abandonment. It's part of a silent process of closure, something that needs to be respected and welcomed with serenity. The sixth sign is linked to the perception of time and reality. Many elderly people nearing the end begin to confuse dates, don't recognize familiar places, or refer to relatives who have already passed away as if they were alive. There's a mixture of past and present, and this can seem worrying to those who don't understand what's happening. However, scholars of aging and consciousness note that this phenomenon isn't just mental confusion. In some cases, it's as if the person is transitioning between two planes of consciousness. Time ceases to be linear, and the brain seeks references that offer comfort. Talking to a deceased mother, for example, can be a way to find emotional security. It's not necessarily hallucination, but a state in which the mind begins to disconnect from earthly logic. This sign, although difficult to interpret, can be one of the clearest forms of warning. The seventh and last sign is an acceptance that comes without fanfare. There's no drama, no despair, just a different peace, a tranquil surrender to whatever is to come. Many elderly people begin to talk about goodbyes serenely. They say they're ready, that they've lived what they had to live, or that they feel that their time is coming to an end. In some cases, this perception is accompanied by simple requests, a desire to see someone again, a wish to hear a certain song, or the decision to donate personal belongings. These gestures, however discreet, carry a profound symbolism. It's as if each choice is a way to put everything in order. For those who observe with sensitivity, this state of acceptance is both moving and enlightening. Stephen Hawking said that silence can be a complete answer. At this moment in life, it usually says more than any word. Faced with these seven signs, it's natural to feel a mixture of sadness and reflection. But perhaps the greatest teaching is the urgency of valuing time with those we love. When an elderly person begins to show these signs, there's still room for meaningful conversations, gestures of affection, and respectful goodbyes. The most common mistake is trying to deny what's happening. Instead, it's necessary to create a welcoming environment where the person can feel safe to be who they are, without pressures or expectations. This means accepting the slower pace, respecting the silences, and being present even in the simplest moments. It's in this care that dignity resides, and even if we can't control time, we can choose how to cross it alongside those we love. Each exchanged look, each hand held, can transform what would only be an end into a true, human, and meaningful closure. Recognizing these signs isn't predicting death, but understanding life in its most delicate cycle. The last year of a person's life can be marked by much more than fragility. It can be a time of reconciliation, of forgiveness, of remembering what really matters. Stephen Hawking lived decades longer than doctors predicted and always emphasized the importance of using well the time one has. No one knows for sure how much time is left, but knowing how to identify the changes can bring relief to those who care and peace to those who depart. Knowledge in this context, is an instrument of love. It allows us to see beyond the surface and act with wisdom. Therefore, if you live with someone who presents some of these signs, don't see it as an immediate end, but as an invitation to be even more present. Sometimes the last months can become the deepest of coexistence, if they are lived with attention and respect. Often families hesitate to talk about the end of life with their elderly loved one. There's a widespread fear of saddening, frightening, or seeming insensitive. However, avoiding the topic can create more suffering than addressing it with care. An open dialogue conducted with empathy and calmness can alleviate silent anxieties. Some seniors are aware that they are approaching the end and want to talk about it, but find no space. Others still resist the idea but realize that something is changing within them. It's the role of family members to create an atmosphere where these feelings can be welcomed without judgment. Asking how the person is feeling, what they want for the coming months, and how they would like to be cared for are ways to honor their autonomy. It's not about anticipating difficult decisions, but about opening space for the person to express themselves. This strengthens bonds and avoids regrets later. Another important aspect is understanding that aging and approaching death aren't identical experiences for everyone. Each person walks this path uniquely. While some seniors show clear signs, others go through this phase more subtly. Therefore, there's no rigid template. The most important thing is to maintain active listening and observe consistent changes. A single, isolated sign may not mean much, but the presence of several repeated over time deserves attention. It's in this respectful vigilance that real care is born. It's possible to act with prudence, seeking medical support, adjusting routines, and above all, offering affectionate presence. The end of life doesn't have to be a time of despair. It can be an opportunity to offer the best of ourselves, patience, generosity, and listening, and with that transform what would only be a farewell into a profound gesture of love and respect. Stephen Hawking said that while there is life, there is hope. This phrase, spoken by someone who faced a degenerative disease for more than 50 years, carries a special meaning. Even in his most fragile moments, he sought knowledge, connection, and purpose. This attitude teaches us that until the last moment, it's possible to live with meaning. For the elderly, especially those who begin to show signs that they are approaching the end, this doesn't mean giving up, but reorganizing the remaining time in a way that makes sense. Visiting a beloved place, writing a letter, recording a message, resolving something unfinished. These are small gestures, but they gain immense value when we know that time is short. The role of family and friends is to support these choices, facilitate these desires, and ensure that each day has value. It's not about prolonging life at any cost, but about valuing it while it pulses. It's also important not to romanticize this period. The end of life can bring physical suffering, emotional confusion, and fear. The pain doesn't disappear with pretty phrases, but it can be softened with practical and affectionate gestures. Controlling symptoms with appropriate medications, offering comfort in the environment, ensuring hygiene, food, and warmth. These simple actions make a difference. In addition, there's a fundamental role in psychological support, both for those who are leaving and for those who remain. Professionals such as psychologists and specialized caregivers can help translate fears into words, alleviate guilt, and facilitate goodbyes. Spirituality, when present, can also be a foundation. It doesn't matter the religion, but the ability to find meaning in the mystery of the end. As Hawking said, even when the universe seems dark, there can still be light. Sometimes that light is a conversation. Other times, it's just the silent presence of someone who cares and chooses to stay. The impact of the end of life doesn't only affect the elderly person, but extends to their entire network. Children, grandchildren, friends, and caregivers feel the emotional weight of the process. Some prepare in advance, others deny it until the last moment. Grief in this sense begins before death. It's called anticipatory grief. Recognizing this can help understand reactions of sadness, anger, or even relief that arise before the loss materializes. Talking about these feelings, seeking support, and not demanding ready-made answers is essential. Each person lives this moment in their own way. There's no right or wrong. What exists is the need to welcome, listen, and accept, and if possible, use this final time to strengthen bonds, heal old wounds, and give thanks. Instead of waiting for everything to end to recognize the value of the person, why not say now how much they were and still are important? This recognition can completely change the way the end is lived. There are moving records of families who, upon noticing the signs, decided to gather everyone for a last celebration, a special lunch, a day outdoors. Others wrote collective letters, recorded videos, organized meetings that marked everyone's memory. These moments don't erase the pain of farewell, but fill the void with meaning. They help to remember that even when the body weakens, love can remain whole. Creating these experiences requires courage, but also brings peace. For those who are leaving, knowing that their presence left positive marks is a consolation. For those who stay, having the certainty that they offered the best possible is a lasting relief. The end of life doesn't have to be marked by silence and waiting. It can be lived as a chapter of reconnection, of listening, and of true presence. And that's something everyone deserves. Although each end is unique, awareness of what's to come allows more humane choices to be made. Deciding on care, limits, preferences, and even the place where one wants to spend their last days can make all the difference. Many elderly people have specific desires, but don't always feel comfortable expressing them. Creating an environment where this can be said naturally is a form of respect. These aren't easy decisions, but avoiding them can create more pain than facing them. Being beside someone at the end of life doesn't require heroism, just sincere presence. As Stephen Hawking said, intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. Knowing how to adapt love, routine, and priorities in this delicate moment is a sign of emotional maturity. It's not about controlling the outcome, but about making it happen in the most dignified, serene, and closest way to what the person would like. It's also important to know that, despite all the care, it's not always possible to anticipate the exact moment of departure. There are elderly people who show clear signs for months and continue living with some stability, while others depart suddenly, even without showing previous indications. Therefore, more than seeking predictions, the most sensible thing is to cultivate presence, being near, listening, respecting the silences, offering company. These are the attitudes that build meaningful memories and alleviate future regrets. And even when the end comes, the way it was lived can leave different marks. A farewell without haste, with space for affection and truth, has the power to heal with more smoothness. It doesn't eliminate the pain, but transforms the absence into living memory. And living memory is the one that calms the heart, even after the voice falls silent. Therefore, never underestimate the value of small gestures in this final time. When we think about the life of Stephen Hawking, it's inevitable to reflect on the strength that can exist even when the body imposes extreme limits. He showed us that the mind and spirit can remain active, creative, and full, even in the face of an irreversible diagnosis. This perspective doesn't romanticize suffering, but inspires us to value time consciously. For many seniors, especially those who realize that they are approaching the end, the greatest need isn't for treatment, but for meaning, knowing that their life had value, that it left teachings, that their presence still matters. That's why listening to stories, recalling moments, looking at old albums, and remembering achievements can be more effective than any medicine. The sincere recognition, the praise that was kept, the gratitude that was never said. This is the possible legacy in the last days, transforming silence into presence and pain into conscious care. There's still a very strong social resistance to talking about death naturally. It seems like a forbidden subject, laden with fear and taboo. But when this conversation is avoided, the end becomes more lonely, more confusing, and more painful. In contrast, when it's faced with respect, it can be lived with much more lightness. Death is part of life, and understanding this helps to deal with it better when it approaches. Knowing that the end is near doesn't need to generate despair, but an opportunity to make peace with time, to forgive what needs to be forgiven, to thank what needs to be thanked, to look in the eyes and say, "I'm with you until the last moment." It's not necessary to dramatize, just to be. The most beautiful farewell is the one in which no word is trapped, no hug is postponed, no important memory ceases to be rescued. This is what transforms pain into affection. In many moments of life, we leave for later conversations that should have been done a long time ago. We think we'll have other chances, other days, other reunions. But when the signs begin to appear, time changes in weight. Each day becomes an opportunity. Therefore, if you are living with someone who may be in their last year, don't wait for special dates. Create now the moments that will be missed later. Recall stories, take photos, sing old songs, laugh together. The farewell doesn't need to be a solemn ritual. It can be light, real, and full of life. Sometimes the most beautiful thing isn't saying goodbye, but simply being there. What marks a life isn't the duration, but the intensity of the bonds created. And these bonds can be reinforced until the end. It doesn't matter how much time is left. What matters is what you will do with this time, because it more than ever is what we have most precious now. If this content touched you in some way, please consider sharing it with someone who may need these words. And if you want to follow more videos with respectful and human information like this, subscribe to the channel. Your presence here is valuable. Each view, each comment, each new subscriber shows us that it's worth continuing to offer content that welcomes, informs, and respects. Dealing with the end of life requires courage, but also wisdom. And together, we can build a space where these conversations are possible, without fear, without haste, without silence. May each story told here help to transform farewells into moments of deep connection, and may no one, in their last days, feel alone. Because in the end, what we all seek is the same: to be remembered, to be loved, and to have left something good in the heart of those who remain.